I'm wondering if on down the road, every other year, we ought to have them do one of these projects for us.
That's a great option for them.
Yeah, I think it would be a lot more informative as far as the paving is concerned, if we have a paving survey. I mean, we're sort of, we're not as informed as we need to be effective.
Yeah, I mean, I did make a list of road conditions that I upgrade every year, but it's not gonna be anywhere as near as detailed as they're gonna have.
What have we decided to do today? Think about it?
Yeah, I don't think we're ready to make a decision. I'm not ready. Are you guys ready? I mean, I'll follow the train on that.
I'm not prepared today to add money to the repaving budget.
When do we want to get together with this guy again?
What is the?
It's my understanding we don't have a meeting the 4th because we traditionally don't have a meeting on the, excuse me, 5th Monday, that's January 29th.
Right.
Yeah, we do have one on the 5th,
Yes.
right? Which would be a day before the budget meeting. So why don't we all talk together again then?
Yep.
We're gonna talk about it anyway during various parts of the meeting, so I think between the three of us, we can probably get.
Do we want to dedicate an hour before the end of January? I'm thinking we need, if we're going to come up with something substantially different, we need to make sure this lady doesn't have to, within 12 hours, get the paperwork and get it out for her committee. No, that's not fair to them.
We're only changing the number. All right, let's think about that.
Okay? Okay.
I've had enough of Mr. Green.
Yep.
I'm ready for the police.
Well, we did have the one article for the warrant that we haven't acted on yet with respect to the paving at the highway garage. That was a project, $31,000 that you brought to CIP. Right. And one question that I have, it was brought to my attention by our code officer, that as we repave there, we need to put a concrete pad at the refueling station to comply with the law.
Oh, okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. Well, I could probably kind of like when you go into a gas station at the pumps, it's got concrete, and it's got a little groove around it. That's probably what we're talking about here.
I did notice they did that last year when they,
At
at the
the
town.
state garage, yeah.
They did, it's,
Yeah. So, does that, thinking about the $31,000 figure, does that bump up the cost of that too?
Mhm.
And how much does it bump that up?
I would guess that probably be right around 4,000. Probably would have somebody come in for that and put the gas stuff in there.
Okay. So now you're already doing concrete work there on the apron, right?
We were gonna do just a small one. We talked about doing a big one at one point in time,
Mhm.
but it was very expensive, so I didn't feel the need to do like a 25-foot apron. I think we decided just to have an angled apron of like 3 feet.
And the other thought that or question I have, the area where you're loading the spreaders now, that's not paved, that we're gonna pave, adjacent to the
Yeah.
sand shed, right?
Correct.
Was your thought to pave that in concrete in there, given the heavy load that we got on the trucks in there, or to pave it in with asphalt?
I was gonna do asphalt again, just because of the cost difference. I think will last for, you know, a long time. It should. I don't think it's different than any of the other garages.
I'd like to speak on this issue. I've watched the town, was on the budget committee, do repairs, exactly what you're talking about to the fire stations, and there's another one that has to be done, the cement has to come up. There's a reason why in the trucking business, you have cemented aprons. The other thing is that before you do the cement apron, you have to dig down and pull the rocks out that are there. Until I see an itemized list of contingencies for this project, I will not vote in favor of it. The reason for it is, I saw when Paul Bennett and Steve Hunter labored a week taking boulders, the dimensions of this, width of this table, out of the Mirror Lake Fire Station, and then they put the culvert in. The last thing I want to do is get halfway through and where do we find the money? It's a little bit like we had to have overhead doors. Guess what? Where do we come up with $1,000 to rewire the building that had to be brought up to code? It wasn't put in the
So
budget.
your suggestion is to eliminate this warrant article?
Yes. Or we have a few weeks and come back in a week saying, this is what the itemized bill of particulars is. Thank you.
You got a lot of work to do in a week.
I can up the budget as much as you guys want. I mean, that's not a problem. I'm just trying to keep the budget as low as I can so that it seems more affordable for most people.
You are great that way, and you already do keep the budget low. But we're talking about thousands of pounds of trucks. It's a little bit like the Sodom Road Bridge. It needs to be done whether the state wants to help us or not. Maybe my metaphors I'm mixing up or whatnot.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, I believe this is a project that needs to get done this year. We've been kind of putting it off, kicking it down the road. And it's important, in my mind, to do it right, and so that we're not running into issues in 5 years because we skipped a little bit here or there. So obviously, I'm not suggesting that we want to throw money at a situation, but if we don't want to engage in false economy in terms of doing the project either.
Could we have a list of what you'd like a price on exactly, so that we,
I mean, I think that makes perfect sense.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned putting a concrete pad down where the.
the salt loading area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and, you know, maybe we need to have, and I'm sure there isn't a lot of concrete work going on these days, so you can probably get a bid or a price pretty quickly. But if you want a larger apron, I mean, the digging part of it is the cheapest part, it's all the other stuff.
correct?
We also have another project in town where an apron's going in. I don't know if there's an economy of using the same concrete.
Well, and we'll get into the discussion about bidding at some point in our lives. But I think you could probably call up any number of concrete companies and ask for pricing on doing it a couple of different ways. A larger apron in front of the shop, a smaller apron, the cement on the spreader area, and then balance that out against the cost of paving. So we've got a little more to deal with, and we can structure this. I mean, if Bill wants to get it done this year,
Yep.
I think we have to have a really
We have time.
logical
We have time to
discussion
do
about
this.
this.
For example, does there need to be some type of drainage put in where the water comes down around and
Yeah.
have a culvert or?
Yeah, is there a
Catch basin
catch
or something
basin?
put in?
If there isn't, does there need to be one? And where would it be located and that sort of thing?
I mean, a catch basin is just $1,200 if we get one from the state.
Yeah, we have an existing catch basin on premises already, and that was kind of the focus, was to try to get water.
Get the water into the
to
catch
funnel to
basin
the
rather
catch
than.
basin, correct, as
Does
opposed
it
to
have a
towards the
sump?
building.
Does it have a sump that's operatable?
Yep.
That's
Operatable, is that a word?
usable?
I think operational is what
Yes,
you were looking
okay.
for there.
Yes. got the emphasis on the wrong slide.
Yeah.
Anything else for this guy?
No, but I think he's got a lot of work to do between now and whenever we do this again.
I'd have no problem either having a work session Monday or on a Friday when we
Are we not
sign
in
checks.
on Monday? I thought we were in on Monday. We're not.
The 29th is not scheduled
Not a
for a
regular-
meeting.
But we could have a work session next Monday.
Okay.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
What about you?
Get it done by Monday? Couple
I
weeks.
can, no, to be honest with you, I can get
Okay.
that concrete number quickly. I actually have two guys that work for me that own 603 Concrete Company,
Yeah.
so I can have them give me a number today. But I have to have some detail to tell them
Right.
what they're bidding on, you know?
Right, right. So,
Well, there is a benefit to having a larger apron area in front of a truck bay.
Well, the
In
only
that-
downside to concrete versus salt, it doesn't hold up well.
Well, it's gonna hold up as long as the pavement holds up, which is what?
Yeah, well, I guess the concrete being different,
Yeah.
because it's thicker and has rebar in it versus pavement, but the pavement doesn't get eaten up by the salt like the concrete does. Tends to get soft and.
Well, we live in New England where nothing is easy for us.
Okay, bring it all back to us.
Mhm.
Okay,
A larger apron and perhaps cementing the,
Sure.
a pad up by
Right.
where the spreaders are.
okay,
and the other thing that in any event has to get done is the fuel pad.
Right.
yep.
And, yeah, I don't know what the right dimensions or anything on that, but.
Well, I'll clone it over as close
Like
as I
they
can
have
to
have
go.
up at State Garage, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep, I use that as,
do that as a pattern, sure.
okay,
All right,
Okay.
very good,
Monday.
for Monday.
Think spring, sir.
Yeah. Thanks.
I skipped over someone, chief. Thank you for being patient, chief.
Oh,
How are you doing?
Our audience is.
Good. So I had a, kind of tied into something, you mentioned Lang Pond Road, we've had a report that County Road has been plowed a few times too. It's also listed as one of those roads to camps, and I referred the person to talk to Jim about
Isn't County Road a class 5 road?
It is.
Well, part of it is. Part
one part
part
of
of
it.
it's closed.
Yeah,
It's the same as Lang Pond.
A
Yeah.
closed class 5?
it's seasonal. Yeah,
A seasonal road.
It's called a road to summer camp or something. It's good.
Right.
There's a statute that
County
allows
Road
it.
isn't a road to a summer camp, but anyway.
Well, that's how it was officially designated in their sign for
the
it.
section from the top of the hill down to Sodom Road is seasonal. But
And it's so
I've
close.
noticed that it's been open, so apparently somebody's running the blade through there.
So I guess my thought is, what do you want us to?
Arrest that man, right?
Okay.
What would your recommendation be, sir?
I don't know, I know we had, years ago, we had an issue with Lang Pond, and they were doing some logging, and somebody plowed it, and they were, but that was another issue because that was the snowmobile trail, and they were leaving it,
Yes.
they weren't leaving a space for the snowmobiles, and kind of, there's a conflict between the plow and the snowmobile maintenance of the trail.
Loggers are under a different statutory scheme than the rest of the world.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if it was all for logging though, but
Yeah.
that's what
Do
they
you
call
want to
it.
look into it and see what?
Yeah, I
you
guess
come up with?
my concern with volunteer plowing is the damage that can be done to the road by the guy that's plowing. I mean, removing the snow in and of itself is not an issue, but if it gets torn up by somebody that's going through there and plowing, then it increases the maintenance that we have to do on it in the spring, so. I'm sure you can find out from some of the other,
I'll check on it. I'll
towns.
look into that, see what we
Yeah.
can do.
how they deal
I
with.
also think the problem with that is if they're doing it for this storm, but not the next storm, it kind of, and how do we know that the town's not, how does a person going by know the town's not doing that versus?
Well, and again, we have signage up, or we used to have signage up, and it should still be up, but it's not maintained
Right.
in the winter.
There's always a gate.
So
Yeah,
Jeez.
it's just gone a while, so I don't, think we want to dive into this too far, but this is the, about the docking and kind of proposed language for, obviously it's what, 4 or 5 pages, so.
Wow, this is complete.
So what I did is I took our parking ordinance that we already had, the lake access was called, and I looked at that. I looked at the other ordinances that we already had. I did add in the Mirror Lake boat launch. And then we had already other water access, and then I kind of globalized all the town parking lots in there too, under the prohibitions. I didn't know what the intent was with the Mirror Lake boat launch. I think that's more within your purview than mine. I did, and so this is kind of a discussion point to start. I largely tried to incorporate the language that were in the bills in the previous ordinances. So for example, and what I did is I took some of the language, like, for example, you see at the end about severability, amendments, all this stuff. I took a lot of, some of this language came from what Wolfboro had done in their kind of all-encompassing stuff. So, for example, the Mirror Lake boat launch, I viewed it as largely a place to launch and retrieve boats, not a place to park for an extended period of time. Problem is, if somebody does, it's usually only one person that can do that, because usually I've seen it done with a vehicle and a trailer, and then
There's no more room.
there's no more room. It's a very small location. But again, that's your purview and not mine, but, so I put down, there's a half-hour parking there.
This is, so what you've given us is not a comprehensive.
It is
It is
comprehensive.
comprehensive.
Yes.
No, I mean, I'm looking at the Mirror Lake boat launch.
Well, you gotta look at the prohibitions. The
Oh,
prohibitions.
okay.
So
So
the
the
first-
first part is a discussion of all of the different areas.
And what they're
then-
intended to be used for.
Okay, sorry.
No, and then the parking permits, what that's about. And then removed the reference to stickers, so we don't give out stickers anymore. I updated a lot of that. And then the prohibitions, I've got 17 of them, different things, and I went through the penalties, tried to cover all that. I think to go forward with this, it would involve some thought. Obviously, it's got in-depth thoughts for you folks to decide where you want to go with some of these suggestions.
Now, there's a fork in the road as far as enactment. One is parking ordinances can come under public hearing with Board of Selectmen, correct? Or
Yes.
others need to go to town meeting.
The problem is, one of the problems is some of these are already, for example, one of the things is we have an ordinance in place for Union Wharf. And it says there's no parking on Union Wharf Road. I copied that over verbatim into this, but that would mean Union Wharf Road, the whole length of it, we don't have any signage up except for near the end. And I guess it predates me as to why they would put that up. There must have been problems back when the road, before they improved it. That's what I'm guessing is what the problem was. But-
Would your, number one is to review these,
Yeah,
okay? Not to get the cart before the horse, but to enact these, does it make sense to sweep the slate clean and have one comprehensive set of rules and regulations,
that's the intent, yes.
okay? And should that be enacted at a town meeting, or should it be done by us?
My opinion, and
Go
it's
ahead.
only my opinion, is because the others were enacted at town meeting, anything that's in conflict with them, even though by statute they probably could be in your purview, I think town meeting, the legislative body, has a higher, if they pulled something from you, I think they have to give it back to you, if you will.
And I'm not
That's what I'm
prejudiced.
talking about, the parking along
I have
Union
no
Wharf
problem.
Road, for example.
Right. I have no issue with that.
So you need to structure a warrant article like the planning board does, including all of this,
Yes.
but with language at the head that says this is gonna replace everything that's in existence.
Yes.
It probably should have been at the beginning. I hadn't really thought about looking at planning board one to the other one. What I did at the end is I put under administrative provisions, this ordinance supersedes conflicting sections of earlier adopted ordinances
Yeah.
on the use of town wharves, docks, and parking. So I think, one, you have to kind of look at the policy kind of settings in here and see if they fit what you think should be. And then the next thing I would suggest is sending it to Attorney Sager maybe to review to see if he feels it meets, what other changes need to be made from there and how it should be adopted. My opinion is if the legislative body, town, has regulated something that normally would be within the selectmen's purview, I think you've taken something from you that it's within their rights to do, I think, so you have to get it back from them. What I did do at the end of this, and I borrowed this language exactly from Wilbro, is that in the future, it says amendments, public notice, the Board of Selectmen shall have the authority to amend this ordinance. Before acting upon the amendment, the Board of Selectmen shall hold a public hearing thereon. Notice of public hearing shall be published. That's,
Which is in accordance with the RSA.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I copied what Wilbro had done to kind of give that severability and how it'd be fixed if things change later. But I think that's the first part, though, is you need to review it, it's a lot, and it's gotta get some, and there's some policy decisions you need to look at in there. I tried to be a little more specific, like, in, for example, the Union Wharf, going back to that, that says parking, no overnight parking, it's about it. So, someone could read that to say I could park on the wharf, but there's another section that talks about only a few minutes for loading and unloading. So I tried to say, east of the launch, which would be between 109 and the end of the wharf, if you will, that's parking area, not out on the wharf itself. So I tried to be a little more specific so there's some more guidance there as to what's what.
Cool. Got something else that we want to do?
And you also got a copy of the parking, this form here?
Yes, and I need to check on something because there's an area that's used for parking that somehow there's a sign just on the lakeside, if you will. They went beyond where people park. There's a sign.
Next to the town beach,
It
right?
was supposed to be at the end of the bridge, not at, and that's why I have
At
to
the end of
talk.
that parking area,
Yeah, so it took out like a parking area that people have been using, which wasn't the intent.
About a dozen spots along there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gone now.
Yeah.
So I need to, I was gonna talk first to the supervisor here.
Does this cover the issue you had across from John Sims' house?
Yes, yes. But the only thing that kind of came up was that it was meant to stop at the bridge. In other words, you can't park along the bridge, and they went beyond it, which takes out like those dozen or so spaces that there's no need to take out, in my opinion. But maybe the distance I gave them, or to you to give to them, was off. I'll have to check on that, but I want to talk to the foreman down here to see if that can, how that sign ended up, if it could be moved. It could have been, they just put it there because it was easier to do, I don't know. Thought I had the distance down, but I'll double check that. The other thing, that's a concern, right, I said, wait a minute, this is way off.
Yeah.
But I like the new signs because they do say from between signs.
Right.
And so it's
Arrows
clear-
on them.
Arrows on them, so it's clear that you can't just,
And certainly on 20 Mile along there with that section that never used to have a sign, it's now clearly marked.
it's not
So
clearly
that's-
marked
That's
at the
terrific.
end where people sometimes think that it's a boat launch and
Yeah,
we're parking there and stuff, which is problematic since it's a blind corner where they're parking, so I took care of that. So I was happy to see all that got done this fall.
Yep.
It's kind of said it could wait till this spring. I just, that one little glitch of that one sign I need to talk to them about.
yep.
So the other thing is, it was talk about like a weekly kind of, update thing. So, I don't know if this was something that you thought would be helpful, like, to this kind of level, or I guess it's the first attempt at it to see what you thought.
My thoughts are similar to what I showed you from Bo. It has a date and time,
What time is it though?
or date.
Yeah, date's good.
Do you remember that paper I showed you?
I honestly forgot about that.
Yeah.
If you can give that to me again, I'll
I'll
certainly take a look
be
at
glad
it
to.
and see what I We're probably not quite as busy as Bo.
Let's hope.
But,
I
you know,
hope not, yeah.
but the quality of your work is, yeah, I'm kind of unique because I deal with you in juveniles and
So-
another profession, and you guys are busy.
And obviously this isn't everything, but this is kind of the,
And there's no repeats on here,
it's no repeats of what.
the action.
Well, I did like, for example.
1-8, the first item, and 1-12, the first item, are those two different individuals?
Two different individuals. Well, I mean, with,
Seems like pretty excessive for a small town.
no,
In the course
because,
of 1 week.
no, because as soon as somebody changes a car, or changes a phone number, or
Oh,
changes an
okay.
email address,
All right, so it isn't new people coming in?
it's not new people coming in, but they have to come in and
Okay.
do new paperwork.
All right.
One of those was, although I would say that both of these are new registrations, sex offender registrations, these are new, well, I would say new. These are, some people are quarterly, some people are annual. These two were fairly new, these two and quarterly registrations. One of which we had to get DNA sample to, yeah, one of which we had to do a DNA sample for. But to go with that, they have to come in. I had somebody reach out through the Facebook page, say, I got a new car. I'm like, no, you have to come in. But that can happen. Or if they work someplace and the work.
So maybe for clarification purposes, when you do this report the next time,
Yeah,
do update and registration,
Oh, yeah.
that's two different.
these were registrations though.
Okay, and I'm fine with that. But just so that I'm not sitting here thinking, Jesus, what's happening in my little town?
It just, it goes by birth month, I believe, is how it goes. And it's quarterly for some, annual for others.
Yeah,
So it just happens to be what their birth months are.
okay. And were you made aware of the lights on a car forcing some other car off the road on Governor Wentworth Highway? Some police or fire vehicle?
The sergeant last Thursday worked with Chief Thompson on it.
Okay.
He,
And the chief brought it up at this meeting.
that it wasn't one of his vehicles.
So we were wondering who it was.
Don't know.
So now
Trying to
we're
figure that
looking
out,
at
yeah.
People were running around with lights on their cars.
It's not good.
No, I have a yellow light on my truck, but I never turn it on.
Well, I'm anal about
This-
that because our citizens need to know that when that red or blue light is on, it's one of your guys or one of Adam's guys, and it's a
Well,
legitimate
it
emergency.
could be other things too. I mean, doctors can have them now.
Yes. The
Um,
guy who runs the X-ray department goes through town.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I understand
So-
that, but the general, my comment is the
Yeah,
general
red lights.
public needs to have confidence.
Red lights, I don't have a problem with blue lights, I have a problem with.
Right.
No, only I'd rather just the police have those.
Yes, yeah, I hear you, I hear you. But, so there is, and then they're looking at adding that, are they adding it or have added it for dispatchers too? So it kind of goes ambulance, it's not just police, fire and EMS, it's medical personnel, it's, can be dispatchers, it could be if somebody works for a private ambulance and heading to their wherever, so. It was, find out more.
Okay.
Sure.
Next.
Okay, so, give me some feedback as to what, if this is what you want, or you want more of. I did try to say like, for example, on the 11th, I said civil standby was related to the 10th, the domestic on the 10th. There's also, the 11th was a service of protective order, but it was unrelated to the domestic, so.
It was just that first item, the sex offender registration.
Yeah, that kind of struck me too. I don't want anybody to think there's, we do 2 a week, every week on
Yeah,
registrations.
It could get a little busy,
Yeah.
but
And it does.
this becomes public information. It
Right.
isn't like it's just you and I or you and
Well,
the
anybody,
board.
there is to find out more about those, both of these are public, so they could go on the public website to find. We can't share that information, but they can get them through the state police.
Right, but it'd be nice if the report reflected what happened in that particular instance, just so that we're not having people put up crazy. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
two every week is coming into tough to break.
No, we don't
The
have,
sky is.
we don't have 104 a
Yeah.
year at all. And also,
It lends itself to hyperbole.
yes, and I thought about that exact thing when I saw it. I said, that's not, it kind of gives a false impression that we have a bunch of sex offenders. We don't have that
Real
many.
estate values drop and people start moving out of town.
People push for ordinances to move them, which are illegal, that sort of stuff.
It's
Um,
crazy.
So those are the two big things I had. Obviously, we've been working on, we finished our training for the year. Obviously, just looking at the training for the next year coming up. We did our use of force. We had to do our certification to the police standards and training. We've done the required training and met the hours we had to do. We also have to, I also now, because of the new memo from the Attorney General's office, I have to certify, they call it the exculpatory evidence, used to be called the lawyer list. We don't have any officers that are on that for any reason, or if they are, why they're on that. And we have to certify it both with the Attorney General's office and the County Attorney's office, which, my understanding is the only one that sent that certification, not just notification, but certification that we've done the background information and we've reviewed the files to the County Attorney's office. That's something I hadn't seen till later. But anyway, there's changes on that coming too. And that's kind of where we're at, a bunch of stuff. Oh, and the server is on order. It's not done yet, but
You're gonna be replacing some firearms this year for warrant articles in the budget.
rifles.
Can we have certainty, and I'm not asking for it, but at town meeting, can we have certainty as to where those old firearms are going if it's asked? So it's not, well, we're just gonna put an ad in the paper, or we're gonna trade them in and the gun dealer can have them. I just need to have
Okay.
some certainty.
My intent was to, my intent was to trade them in to the gun dealer
Okay.
and let them dispose of it. They're licensed, they'd have to follow federal law, let them do it as they see fit.
Are you comfortable with that?
I am, but I know others aren't, so I would respect other decisions on it, whatever guidance it is. Obviously,
Well, as long as we've got clarity, so you can talk to whatever position is out there, because I can't. I don't
it's
know.
kind of, it's split. I mean, a lot of places will do the trades, but I know some places get a lot of, there is heartache over it in some areas, and there is a company in Maine that will chip them in front of you, send you the video of it if you chip them over, so you can show that you chipped them up into little pieces of metal. But that's,
What does it cost?
they're free to do the chipping, it's free. It costs us because we can't trade them in and get some,
So that
cover some
number
funds.
needs to be available.
Yeah.
So one is getting rid of them for free, and the other is benefiting to the tune of whatever thousands of dollars, then we need to put that in front of people if they need it.
That's, sure,
Okay, great.
that's,
I want to talk about computers, but go ahead.
No, I'm done.
You and I have had conversations.